Hello and welcome back to Raise Gaming and some more Monster Hunter news. Today we've got a couple of topics to talk about for our third week of February, with the release getting really close now. This time we have some interesting reveals from, say, an offline event in Korea, a special merch collab that's been announced, an interview referencing Wilds and siege fights to come or not come, as well as a live stream thanks to our community managers of Jono and Joe, who hunted new Udra in full, letting us get to see lots of new details that we can highlight. So let's begin with just that live stream. This was taking place on a pre-launch build that is running on performance mode on a base PS5. The build is actually a more recent pre-release build than, say, what we've experienced in the betas though, so it is a bit updated. Anyway, something that I thought was interesting was when they encountered new Udra in Area 15. There's a lot of red markings on the map and also where they're standing. It's these sort of lava pools. This seems to deal ticking damage over time when you step onto them, so definitely seems like a pretty tough zone to fight in, making the area you're going to fight in a lot tighter than maybe it looks in more of an open cavern. Now, something the devs talked about is how they got this new cephalopod skeleton working for quite a lot of interesting movement, where the way that we see new Udra move around on the ground, or the way it clings and moves onto walls, going through cracks. But something they highlighted in one of the interviews was how it can cling to pipes and terrain like that. Now, they're very proud of that mechanic, but it's something we didn't really get to see. It climbs up onto the ceiling and then crawls along a pipe up there to get to the final area. It looks like it's kind of flowing around the pipe, spiraling around it, creating sort of smooth forward momentum. And I just think that looks really cool. It is very unique for a monster. And it's definitely going to be one to watch for a new monster with new functional movement and all that new behavior as a new monster type. Another thing we get to see from this is two different setups. One is a greatsword using the full Ajarakan set, and then another is a charge blade using the same thing. From this, we can see that the full set appears to give resentment, blast resistance, which makes sense, part breaker, which could be handy, and bombardier. But based on the two different sets, we also saw other skills. For example, with the greatsword, we saw critical status and poison duration up, whereas for the charge blade, we saw guard up ×3. So obviously we have weapons and they have skills on them, so those must be coming from whatever greatsword and charge blade that is. But that's one of our first real looks at the skills on equipment in Wilds so far. Throughout the hunt, you also get a nice look at the new sharpness meter, where we're getting to see it in white sharpness, but also blue sharpness for what I believe is the first time. Why I highlight it is just because I really appreciate the UI, the visuals of it. But you've also got this little notch, this line, to show you exactly when you're going to drop down into blue. Then when they drop down into blue, you have the same thing for green sharpness. It's just really clean UI. And also, something about the color of that blue is just very satisfying. The whole UI of Wilds is incredible, so it's just something I wanted to highlight. Next, we got to look at the new Udra pin attack and its full animation in two versions. One is where the hunter gets grabbed suddenly, and as the fire is warming up, the player with quick enough reflexes can spam out enough dagger stabs into the tentacle that's holding you, actually freeing yourself before you get burned, which is certainly handy to know that you can do that. But much later we do get the full thing as the hunter is grabbed and can't escape, taking the full wave of flame to the face. Here, the hunter also tried to use an offensive pod to escape instead. This suggests that might also be a viable option that'll work too if you've got one equipped, like say arkveld in the beta. But interestingly, I saw people complaining about this grab attack on Reddit, in that it didn't actually do that much damage considering the situation and nasty nature of the attack. Why is that? Well, two things I suppose. Firstly, is this low or high rank? And secondly, this hunter was wearing the full Ajarakan armor set. That seems to have good fire resistance built into it, seemingly enough to negate fire blight, so the damage was surely reduced by a lot here as a thing to keep in mind. Next though, let's highlight a new reveal, thanks to this footage, the mending mantle. Initially, we get a glimpse of a nice system for some real quality of life here, where the hunter pulls up their items and scrolls over their active equipment, like the mantles, and hovers over that new mantle, the mending one, but then quickly selects the ghillie for the sneak attack moment here. So here, it's just awesome to see that we have two equipped mantles at once, and it's easy to pick either one in the moment. But more importantly, what does the mending mantle actually do? Well, later we do see the description and it actually being used during the hunt, and it basically steadily restores health over a set amount of time. Some players have compared this to the concept of a health booster, but in mantle form. So instead of placing something on the ground you have to stand and heal in, it's just a solid heal over time for the entire duration you're wearing it, which is fantastic and should really help you deal with, say, the combat negatives of standing that lava from earlier, or just taking hits, learning a fight for the first time, and not having to stop to heal all the time. So I reckon it'll be a very popular mantle. This alongside Gilly and the Rocksteady mantle, which was revealed thanks to an NPC wearing that one. This suggests at least 3 mantles for the game. So hopefully we do see more, but hopefully we don't see a return of Temporal. I always felt that mantle was a little bit too good. As another reveal, we do finally have Rathalos shown in real gameplay footage rather than the original teaser or say the strange version of him in the launch trailer. So this does let us know that he is indeed back in a normal form after all. The whole question mark version in the launch trailer made it seem like this could have been the same one we saw in the teaser trailer, just one that was travelling through the Forbidden Lands and something happened to it. So this confirms that Rathalos in his normal version will be back in the game, as well as that strange version we saw in the trailer. Another funny thing that happened showed up in Area 9 later, which was to do with the blast call. We saw these here and there in different footage, but this was just a really good showing of them. There's at least 3 of them close together in this area, as the hunter rolls the first down the crater, but it doesn't quite reach. But then he gets more success with the next 2, dealing surprisingly high damage considering that's new Udra. These are fire rocks, and new Udra is a fire monster, so surely resistant. But maybe the physical blow and the explosion's why? It still deals 300 damage both times, which is very impressive damage. So if you find yourself in Area 9, I'd make use of this blast call. Later in the hunt then, we see new Udra in its nest sleeping towards the end of the hunt. We saw this in a bit of different gameplay clips, but it's just good to see it here as the hunter takes their time and really looks at it. It is a very strange sleeping spot, lit up in gold with all the moving parts inside. And as you can see, because he cut a tentacle earlier, it's also cut off like a stump in this situation. With a wake up, new Udra comes flying out all at once in a very unsettling way. I should also mention that Joe, the player here, managed to cut off 6 of the 6 tentacles at this point, so you can cut off all the main tentacles for this crazy monster. But after the first hunt, we do see a jump over to a new setup using Charge Blade. Helpfully, they confirm that this is indeed Rompampolo's weapon on voice, so we can take a nice look at its design. On the back, it looks like this massive shield with the 2 wings coming out and that interesting hourglass at the center. It's very gothic. But in axe mode, it gets these kind of tube-like things that actually might be snakes wrapping around it. And when I saw that, I realized it reminded me of that doctor symbol, the caduceus, which is basically a staff with 2 snakes coiling around it, which is a symbol of the medical profession basically. And you know, with the Rompampolo armor set being tied to a kind of plague doctor theme, this is just a really cool design and reference idea for the Charge Blade. I really appreciate that. But yeah, those are some of the interesting spots that I saw from that live stream. Thank you again to Jono and Joe for doing that. But there were a couple other things, like for example, an interview with MP First, just a media outlet. This was an interview with Ryozo and Togeda, and they were talking about how there's currently no plans for an endgame raid, at least at the launch of the game. But what does that really mean? They were asked if it would feature endgame raid-like quests. What do they mean by that? Well, the answer kind of tells us. Currently for Monster Hunter Wilds, the general gameplay is planned for 4-player multiplayer, like we had with Monster Hunter World, which had Kulturov, which was a 16-player raid. We don't have something like that planned for endgame for Monster Hunter Wilds right now. So similar to Monster Hunter World, that raid quest wasn't available in the game. It was added as an update after the game launched. We want users in Wilds to get time to get used to the gameplay and enjoy it, and then move on to the more challenging part, the more enjoyable content, after they finish. So in the game itself, when we launch it, we don't have plans for raid quests. Similar to how we ran World, it was intentionally done that we didn't add it and not a technical one. So they're not stuck or struggling to do siege related quests in Wilds, that's very clear, but just like World, it's not something that's going to be initially in the first version of the game. But the way they said that makes me think that siege hunts or big spectacle fights like that, more challenging hunts, are going to come in the title updates just like they did for World. But this pretty much does confirm that there won't be like a 16-player siege raid, at least at launch, which might be disappointing for some, but personally, I find them a bit gimmicky. I love the challenge of fights like Rathalos and Elatrion, but that long section with Kulturov with all the cannons, personally that wasn't for me, so I'm not too bothered. Now, as another bit of news, there was a funny announcement to do with Korea and a special in-person offline event. So it's something that's going to take place on the 2nd of March in Korea, but why I'm bringing it up in this video is just because of a bit of a reveal that it gave us. Not a major one, but it gave us this table showing different monsters at different times. And this gives us a nice look at the icons of certain monsters that we've not seen before. For example, look at Lala Barina's one. That's absolutely fantastic. Commonly, you see monsters and their icon designs sideways on, Say with the Rompompolo here, we actually get that similar idea. Or with Congalala and this updated version for Wilds. But with the Lala Barina one, I just really like how it's face on like that. Very clearly showing the flower that it's essentially holding up on its back. Absolutely fantastic design. We also get a look at Nerscylla as well, very much highlighting the change in design in that its purple crystals are much bigger and wider across its back, just like the new version in Wilds. So yeah, not a massive reveal, but neat to look at. The last thing I want to mention is the announcement of some sort of merchandise, a limited collection of outfits that you can buy. Some sort of collaboration with a group called Project N2, who seem to do different collaborations with different companies of this nature. They've called it the Hunter Collection, and so hopefully we get a good look at the full range of them. But it does look like it might be actually high quality stuff. So if you are interested, I wouldn't miss that, since again, it's apparently a limited collection, so it won't run forever. We were actually lucky enough to be part of the few people who got sent some cool stuff. A crate with a little acknowledgement, a flag with our YouTube channel name on it, a little plushie and some cards, the Hunter's notes journal and a bag, and indeed their little hoodie jacket as well. So, very cool stuff. But yeah, that's my overview of this third week of February and some of the news that came out over the last couple of days. Just some interesting stuff to talk about and think about. We're getting super close to launch though, so expect lots more videos about Wilds in the coming days and weeks. For now then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.